Hi, and welcome to our menstrual migraine masterclass. I'm really excited to present this masterclass today because it's very close to my heart, because this is what I suffer from. This has been my journey over the years, and I've got so much information that I can't wait to share with you. So first of all, I want to go over what is menstrual migraine. So it's when you're getting a migraine attack within a 5-day window in at least 2 of the last 3 menstrual cycles. So that's how we diagnose it. And it can occur anywhere from the 2 days before your period to the first 3 days into your cycle. Most commonly, we see it happening on the day before into the first day of the cycle, but really it can be anywhere within that 5-day window. Attacks can occur at other time of the month as well, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And the symptoms are the same as a standard migraine attack, but they can be more severe and they can be more long-lasting and difficult to treat. The reason why they happen is the fluctuating levels of hormone, in particular the dips in estrogen. Now, it's really important for you to understand that our hormones fluctuate throughout our cycle. They're going up and down, and we'll have a look at an image of that in a moment. And it's just this normal fluctuation of hormone throughout the cycle in the majority of people that's triggering this migraine attack. So just because you're getting menstrual migraine does not mean that your hormones are out of balance. So that's a really important first point I want you to understand, that for the majority of people, it's just the normal fluctuation of the hormone, and it's predominantly the dip in estrogen that's causing it. So when the estrogen dips, we also get a dip in serotonin. And the reason is because serotonin relies on estrogen for its production. And we know that serotonin actually, if the serotonin is high, it decreases the sensitivity of our brainstem. So likewise, if it's low, that sensitivity is going to be increasing and making us more likely to get a migraine because it's lowering our threshold. Estrogen also interferes with pain regulation because of the endorphin release. And this is why we're more sensitive to pain around that first, that 5-day window of our cycle. So just before our period and throughout our period. And it's why we get told, don't come and get laser hair removal or waxing or things done in that time, because we're more sensitive to pain. And that's why it's all linked to that dip in estrogen. Another thing we have found in the research is that some people do get high levels of prostaglandins, and that's common in those people that have got those really heavy, painful periods, and that may also play a role in menstrual migraine. So a lot of clients come to see me as a physio with headache, and I'll question them about when they're getting their headaches, and they'll say, I get one with my period every time. And I'll be thinking, I wonder if this is a headache or if it's actually a menstrual migraine. So we go through this list, and as we've said, does your headache occur in that 5-day window? Is your headache just on one side of your head? Could be either side, could swap each month. Sometimes it starts on one side and then it can spread across, but it always is that one-sided beginning, and it's normally that real pulsing, throbbing pain. And it's normally enough to really affect your daily activities. So you're stopping what you're doing, you're going home from work early, maybe lying down and having a rest. It tends to be more severe during your period than at other times if you're having headaches throughout your cycle and you're getting those other symptoms like nausea and vomiting and increased sensitization of all your senses, your smells and your vision and your light and all of those things. And generally, the headache is made worse by physical activity. So if you're going through this list and you're going, yes, 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 then it's most likely that you've got menstrual migraine. So you'll hear these two terms used interchangeably. So menstrual migraine is when you're only experiencing a migraine attack in that premenstrual, that 5-day period, and you're not getting the migraine attack at any other time in your cycle. And this occurs in between 4 to 12% of people with migraine. Menstrually related migraine, however, is when you're experiencing that migraine attack, so you're having the menstrual migraine in that 5-day window, but you're also having attacks at other times in your cycle. And this condition can be quite severe and quite difficult to treat. And this is what's happening in approximately 50% of our migraine sufferers. So these types of migraines, menstrual migraine and menstrually related migraine, are pretty much always migraine without aura. And when it comes to if you're pregnant and your estrogen and progesterone are rising during your pregnancy, the frequency of these types of headaches tend to get lower and lower and lower as your pregnancy progresses. And this certainly was the case for me with both of my children. When I was pregnant, I was just migraine free and it was wonderful. So, and that was because of that raising estrogen throughout the pregnancy. It's different in people with aura, however. It tends to prefer to have lower estrogen, and they're the ones that tend to have their migraine attacks worsening during pregnancy. So as the hormones increase, the migraines actually get worse. The migraine attacks actually get worse. So what are these hormones anyway? Hormones are our body's chemical messengers. They're made by our endocrine glands, and they need to be in balance for us to function well. Estrogen and progesterone are our two main sex hormones. So the two main sex hormones in women. Now, estrogen causes our female physical features. It's what sets off puberty, and it aids with reproduction. It also affects our cholesterol, controls our menstrual cycle, protects our bone health, and affects our heart, our skin, our brain, and other tissues. So it's super important in our body, and it's mostly produced by our ovaries. Now, as I've said, the levels of estrogen change throughout the cycle, and that's normal. They're at the highest amount in the middle, and they're at the lowest amount just prior to and when you're on your period. And when you're in menopause, they're fluctuating all over the place, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So here's a little diagram just to remind us of what our menstrual cycle looks like. And we divide it into two phases, the follicular phase, the first half, and the luteal phase, the second half. So that first half of our cycle, you can see the estrogen's rising up to a peak around about that day 12, and then it dips down after ovulation. So some people do get that mid-cycle migraine, and that's why you'll see there that the estrogen rises up again a little bit as the progesterone rises, and then it dips down again around about that day 26 to 28, and it stays low through to about day 4, when it then starts to climb back up again. So you can see that that hormone is fluctuating, and that is normal and expected, but it's those dips that are triggering the migraine attack. So let's talk a little bit about perimenopause and menopause, because our migraine attacks often increase in those perimenopausal years, along with other symptoms, hot sweats, mood swings, weight gain, just to name a few. Now, perimenopause is on average 10 years prior to menopause, and menopause is the exact day 1 year following your last period. So the average age for menopause in Australia is 52 years old. So it's really important to understand that menopause is one day, that 1 year following your last period, and you're either before that, perimenopausal, or after that, postmenopausal. And that perimenopausal time can be up to 10 years. So it's a really long period. And during that period is when our production of estrogen, our ovarian production of estrogen and progesterone, and our sex hormones starts to decrease until eventually it just levels out, and we're getting a little bit of it produced from our other endocrine glands, but nothing from our ovaries. So during that fluctuating time, our migraine attacks can be quite severe, and then afterwards we can almost like age out of it, and actually our migraine attacks can almost, and in some people, completely go away. So fingers crossed that's going to happen to all of us. So just to recap, why are they worse during this perimenopausal period? The number one reason is this fluctuation of hormones. The estrogen's getting lower, it's swinging all over the shop, the progesterone's affected as well, the ratio is getting changed from cycle to cycle. And then the other thing that can happen is that you might be getting iron deficiency from heavy periods. And if this is the case, if you're getting a headache after your period has finished rather than that 5-day window, that tends to be due to the iron deficiency. So that is when you think about getting your iron tested and possibly having to supplement for that. And also keep in mind during this period, there's a lot of other things going on as well. So you might be getting poor sleep because of the hot flushes and the night sweats, the mood swings, the stress might be changing your nervous system regulation. So there's other reasons why this time of life is a difficult time for migraine sufferers as well. So everyone that I see with menstrual migraine, the first question is, are my hormones out of balance? Everyone thinks their hormones are out of balance. And as I said, the majority of us, it's just the normal fluctuation. So they've done a lot of research on this and found that it is usually just the normal fluctuation rather than a big imbalance of hormones. But certainly for some of us, our hormones are out of balance. So I just added this slide in so that you can have a look of some of the signs of excess estrogen and low progesterone. We don't tend to see high progesterone, and it doesn't tend to be causing the menstrual migraine symptoms if it is. So if you're looking at these lists and thinking, oh, these could be me, then certainly it would be worth going off to see your natural health practitioner or your GP to discuss this, get tested, and possibly have some supplements. But the number one thing you should do first is just start to make some of these changes that we're going to talk about today, in particular, loving your liver. So the liver is what detoxifies the estrogen. And if we're putting a whole lot of other stuff into our body, the liver will put estrogen as a last priority because it's a natural occurring substance in our body. So it doesn't see us as threatening as alcohol and caffeine and pesticides and all those things, plastics if you're heating up your food in plastic containers. So we really want to be staying away from all of those things, eating lots of the brassica vegetables to support our liver and give it the chance to detoxify our estrogen. So a lot of people want to get their hormones tested, and it isn't always recommended as a first line thing to do. Normally what we want to do really is track our symptoms. So you should be keeping a diary of when you're getting your migraine attacks, what's happening with your menstrual cycle, other symptoms associated, like if you're having a heavy clotty period, if you're having premenopausal symptoms, mood swings, breast tenderness, things like that. So really painting a clear picture over a period of a few months before you're going in and looking to get those hormones tested. Because as you've seen, our hormones are fluctuating all over the place. So you could test them on one day and then you could test them 2 days later and have a very vastly different response. So if you are getting your hormones tested, you need to be very specific with what day of your cycle you are. So for example, with progesterone, you want to test that progesterone 7 days before your period. So when the progesterone is at its highest, so you can see where it's peaking. But if your cycle is not regular and you're not sure where that 7 days is, it's going to be very hard to get tested on the correct day. So it's really important to sort of keep that in mind with hormone testing. So we're going to split this master class up into 2. So let's close this one down and then go off to part 2, and we'll start looking at treatment and lifestyle changes.